I'll never forget the look on Derek Thornton's face when the police officer asked him, for the third time, to explain why his bank statements showed regular payments to an apartment on Riverside Drive, the same apartment where his business associate lived. The same woman who'd been posting photos with my grandson Oliver on her private Instagram account. "Mrs. Walsh," the officer said, turning to me, "would you like to press charges?" My daughter Amber sat beside me, her hand gripping mine so tight I thought my wedding ring might cut through her finger. Little Oliver slept in his carrier at our feet, oblivious to the fact that his father was about to be arrested for fraud, defamation, and domestic abuse. "Yes," I said. My voice didn't shake. After everything I'd been through these past 2 months, I'd learned that a 72-year-old woman could be a lot stronger than anyone expected. "I want to press every single charge we discussed." Derek's expensive lawyer started to speak, but the detective held up his hand. "Mr. Thornton, you need to understand the evidence we have is substantial. Text messages, bank records, witness testimonies. The restraining order violation alone is enough to—" "This is insane!" Derek shouted, finally dropping his calm facade. "That crazy old woman has poisoned everyone against me. She's the one who should be arrested. She stole my child. She turned my wife against me. She—" "Mr. Thornton," the detective's voice was ice, "your mother-in-law has documentation of every single claim she's made. Phone records showing your wife called her for help. Hospital records showing your wife gave birth alone while you were with Miss Courtney Brennan. Security footage from the bank showing you attempting to access your wife's account without authorization. And perhaps most damning, the recordings." I saw it then, the moment Derek realized I'd been 3 steps ahead of him all along. The moment he understood that this 72-year-old woman he'd dismissed as a meddling old fool had built an ironclad case that would destroy everything he'd worked for. But what Derek didn't know, what nobody in that police station knew, was that this was just the beginning. Because I hadn't just gathered evidence against my son-in-law. I'd uncovered something much bigger. Something that involved his business partner, his parents, and a scheme that had been targeting vulnerable young mothers for years. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to where this really started. Back to that rainy night 2 months ago when my phone rang at 11:47 p.m. and I heard my daughter's voice screaming words that would change everything. 2 months earlier, I'd been in bed reading when my phone lit up. At my age, a call that late means one of 2 things: someone died, or someone's about to. My heart was already pounding when I grabbed it. "Mom." Amber's voice was barely recognizable through her sobbing. "Mom, please, I need... the baby's coming. Where are you?" I was already out of bed, pulling on my clothes with one hand. "Where's Derek?" "I don't know. He left. Mom, I'm scared. It hurts so much." Then I heard it. A scream that no mother should ever hear from her child. Raw, primal, terrified. "Amber," I shouted. "Amber, where are you?" "Home. I'm at home. Mom, save my child, please." Her voice broke off into another scream, and then the line went dead. I called 911 while running to my car. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely get the key in the ignition. Amber lived 20 minutes away in Brookside Estates, one of those new developments with the big houses and the perfect lawns. Derek had insisted on buying there, even though I'd told Amber it was too expensive, too far from family. The rain was coming down in sheets. My windshield wipers couldn't keep up. I drove faster than I had in 30 years, praying to God and every saint I could remember from my Catholic school days. When I got to their house, every light was on, but Derek's BMW was gone. The front door was unlocked. "Amber!" I ran through that perfect house with its perfect furniture and its perfect decorations. All of it bought on credit I'd later discover they couldn't afford. I found her in the master bathroom, on the floor, her water broken, contractions coming fast. "Mom," she sobbed when she saw me. "The baby." "The ambulance is coming, sweetheart. I'm here. I've got you." But even as I held her, even as I tried to remember what little I knew about emergency childbirth from when my sister had her babies. One thought kept screaming through my mind. Where the hell was her husband? The paramedics arrived 12 minutes later. They said we'd made it just in time. Another 20 minutes, and it would have been too late. They rushed Amber to Mercy General, and I followed in my car, my clothes soaked through, my mind racing. I tried calling Derek 17 times. 17. I counted. Every call went to voicemail. Oliver James Walsh was born at 2:33 a.m. on September 15th. 7 pounds, 4 ounces, perfect in every way. And his father wasn't there to see him take his first breath. I was. I held my daughter's hand. I cut the umbilical cord when the doctor offered. I was the first person to hold my grandson, and when I looked into his tiny face, I made him a promise. I would protect him, no matter what it cost me. Derek showed up at 7 a.m., holding coffee and a bag of bagels like he was just dropping by for a visit. "Sorry I missed it," he said, not even looking at Amber. "Had a work emergency. You know how it is." A work emergency? At midnight, on a Thursday? I watched my daughter's face as he said it, watched her try to smile, to accept his excuse, to make herself smaller so he wouldn't be angry. And something cold settled into my chest. Something I hadn't felt since my late husband Tom was in the hospital and the doctors tried to tell me he was fine, when I knew something was wrong. This wasn't right. None of this was right. "Amber needs to rest," I said, positioning myself between Derek and the hospital bed. "Why don't you go home, clean up, maybe bring her some real food later?" He looked at me then, really looked at me, and I saw something flicker in his eyes. Calculation. Assessment. Like he was deciding whether I was going to be a problem. "Of course, Evelyn," he said, using my first name like we were friends, like he hadn't just abandoned his wife during the birth of their first child. "I'll come back this evening." He didn't come back that evening. He didn't come back the next day either. It was my friend Ruth who finally told me what she'd seen. Ruth Goldstein and I had been walking in Patterson Park together every morning for 15 years. She lived 2 blocks from Amber's house, and she didn't miss much. "Evelyn," she said on our walk that Saturday morning, 3 days after Oliver was born. "I need to tell you something, and you're not going to like it." "Tell me." Derek's car was at that new townhouse development on Riverside Drive, Thursday night. I saw it when I drove past on my way home from my daughter's house. It was still there Friday morning when I went to the grocery store. My stomach dropped. "You're sure?" Black BMW, license plate Trent and 1? Hard to miss. "Evelyn, that's where that real estate agent lives, the one who sold them their house. Courtney something. Courtney Brennan. I remembered her from the closing. 28 years old, blonde, all smiles and professional courtesy. She'd touched Derek's arm 3 times during the signing, and I'd thought I was being a paranoid old woman for noticing. "Ruth, I need you to do me a favor." "Anything." "I need you to watch that townhouse. I need to know if his car is there again. And I need photos." Ruth squeezed my hand. "Consider it done." That afternoon, while Derek was supposedly at his office, I sat with Amber and Oliver in her hospital room. My daughter looked exhausted, hollowed out, like she'd been running on empty for months. "Mom," she said suddenly, "do you think Derek is having an affair?" My heart broke. Because I did. But I also knew my daughter needed more than suspicions. "I don't know, honey, but I'm going to find out. He's been so distant lately, and there's money missing from our account. He says it's for business investments, but..." She stopped, looking down at Oliver in her arms. "I'm scared, Mom. Something's wrong, but every time I try to talk to him about it, he tells me I'm being paranoid, that I'm crazy, that I need to trust him." I'd heard this story before. My neighbor 3 doors down, her daughter had gone through the same thing. Gaslighting, they called it now, making someone doubt their own sanity. Listen to me, Amber. You're not crazy. If something feels wrong, it probably is. And no matter what happens, you and Oliver are going to be okay. I promise you that. She started crying then, really crying, and I held her while my grandson slept between us. And I started planning. The next morning, I did something I hadn't done since Tom died 5 years ago. I made a list, not just any list, a battle plan. I pulled out the notebook Tom had given me for our 50th anniversary. For your stories, he'd written inside the cover. Well, this was going to be one hell of a story. Things I need to know. Where is Derek really going? Who is Courtney Brennan? Where is the money going? What else is he hiding? Things I need to do. Document everything. Talk to a lawyer. Get Amber and Oliver somewhere safe. Protect my daughter's rights. Things I have. My pension from 35 years teaching elementary school. $3,400 month savings from Tom's life insurance. $127,000. My house, paid off, worth about $380,000. My brain, still sharp, thank you very much. Friends who have my back. Time, I'm retired. I started with the easy part. Research. My granddaughter Lily had taught me how to use Facebook and Instagram properly last Christmas. "Grammy Evelyn," she'd said, "you need to know what's going on in the world." She'd meant it as a joke, but now it was going to be my weapon. Courtney Brennan's Instagram was public, and it was very, very interesting. Photos of expensive dinners, a new Mercedes, designer handbags, trips to Miami, Los Angeles, New York, all in the past 6 months, all time-stamped, and in several of them, in the background, just out of focus, a man who looked an awful lot like Derek. I screenshotted everything, every single photo, every comment, every location tag. Then I created a folder on my computer labeled Oliver's Baby Photos, because I knew Derek would never look in there. Ruth came through 3 days later with photos that made my blood run cold. Derek's car, parked outside Courtney's townhouse at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday. Still there at 6 a.m. Wednesday morning. Gone by 8 a.m. The same pattern Thursday night into Friday morning. "There's more," Ruth said, pulling out her phone. "I talked to my friend Margaret. She does bookkeeping for small businesses. Derek's company? They're in trouble. Big trouble. Haven't made payroll in 2 months. 3 major clients dropped them in the past 6 months. But he just bought Amber a new car in July. Evelyn, I think he bought that car with her credit. Margaret said there's been a lot of activity opening new credit cards in both their names." I felt sick. This was worse than an affair. This was financial abuse. This was systematic destruction. "I need to see Amber," I said. "Today." But when I got to Amber's house that afternoon, Derek answered the door. He looked different, harder. His smile didn't reach his eyes. "Evelyn, what a surprise." "I came to check on Amber and the baby. They're sleeping. Maybe you should call first next time." "Derek, I'm her mother. I don't need an appointment." His jaw tightened. "Actually, Evelyn, we've been talking, and we think you've been coming around too much. Amber needs space to bond with the baby. It's not healthy for you to be here all the time." Over his shoulder, I saw Amber appear at the top of the stairs, holding Oliver. She looked terrified. "Is that what Amber thinks?" I called past him. "Amber, do you want me to leave?" "Derek," she started. "Amber's exhausted," Derek said loudly, starting to close the door. "She'll call you when she's ready." He shut the door in my face. I stood there on that perfect porch, in that perfect neighborhood, and felt rage build inside me like nothing I'd experienced since Tom died. How dare he? How dare this man who'd abandoned my daughter during childbirth, who was cheating on her, who was stealing from her, how dare he tell me I couldn't see my own child? I pulled out my phone and texted Amber, "I love you. When you need me, I'll be there. Always." Then I went home and called the best family lawyer in the city. Sarah Mendez had handled my friend Janet's daughter's divorce 3 years ago. Janet said Sarah was tough, smart, and didn't take any nonsense from cheating husbands. "Mrs. Walsh," Sarah said when we met in her office the next day, "tell me everything." I did. I showed her my documentation, the photos, the Instagram posts, the timeline of Derek's absences, the information about his failing business. Sarah listened carefully, making notes. When I finished, she looked up at me with serious eyes. "Mrs. Walsh, this is definitely grounds for divorce. But there's something you need to understand. If your daughter decides to leave, Derek will fight for custody. Men like this, they use children as weapons, not because they want to be fathers, but because they want control. What do I do? Document everything, every interaction. Record conversations if you can. New Jersey is a one-party consent state, so as long as you're part of the conversation, it's legal. Get your daughter to start keeping records too. Bank statements, credit card bills, evidence of his affair, and most importantly, we need to protect her financially. Does she have any assets in her name only?" "I don't know." "Find out. Because if he's running his business into the ground, he might try to use her credit to save himself. And Mrs. Walsh, be careful. Men like Derek don't like losing. When they feel cornered, they get dangerous." I walked out of that office with a retainer paid, $5,000, money well spent, and a fire in my belly. Tom used to say I was too trusting, too willing to see the best in people. Well, Derek Thornton had cured me of that. That night I joined a WhatsApp group that Ruth had told me about. Grandmothers for Justice, it was called. 12 women, all between 65 and 80, all dealing with difficult family situations. Some had children addicted to drugs. Some had grandchildren in dangerous homes. Some, like me, were fighting manipulative son-in-laws or daughter-in-laws. I introduced myself. "Hi, I'm Evelyn. My son-in-law is cheating on my daughter, stealing from her, and trying to keep me from seeing my grandson who's only 2 weeks old. I'm gathering evidence, but I need advice on what else to document." The responses came flooding in. These women were warriors. They shared templates for documentation logs, tips on how to preserve digital evidence, names of private investigators, advice on recording conversations, links to support groups for abuse victims. Margaret Chen, no relation to any Chens you might know from other stories, she was a brilliant 70-year-old former prosecutor, sent me a detailed guide on financial fraud in marriages. Look for new credit cards she didn't apply for. Check her credit report. Look for second mortgages or home equity loans. That's when I learned about Credit Karma. And that's when I convinced Amber to check her credit report. She called me 3 days later, sobbing. "Mom, there are 7 credit cards I didn't open, and a $30,000 home equity loan on the house. The house I thought we owned outright because Derek said his parents helped us with the down payment. Mom, we owe $287,000, and I never signed anything. Can you come to my house, right now? Derek's at work. He doesn't want me driving yet, but come now, Amber. Bring everything. Every piece of paper you can find. Bank statements, bills, documents, everything." She showed up 40 minutes later with Oliver in his car seat and 2 garbage bags full of paperwork. What we found made me want to scream. Derek had forged her signature on 4 credit card applications. The home equity loan documents had a signature that looked like Amber's, but the notary stamp was from a date when Amber was visiting her aunt in Florida. I had the plane tickets to prove it. He'd taken out a $45,000 car loan for a Lexus that was registered in his name only. He'd opened a business account using their house as collateral, and he'd been systematically transferring money from their joint account to his personal account, then to an account that linked to Courtney Brennan. "Mom?" Amber whispered, staring at the papers spread across my dining room table. "What do I do?" "You fight. We fight." That night, we made copies of everything. I took 1 set to Sarah Mendez's office first thing Monday morning. She looked through it all, her expression getting grimmer by the minute. "This is fraud, wire fraud actually, which is federal. Mrs. Walsh, your daughter needs to file a police report. Today. Will that help with custody?" It'll help with everything. A man who's committing felony fraud isn't a man the courts want raising a child. But when we tried to file the police report, we hit our first real wall. The officer at the desk looked at Amber like she was wasting his time. "Ma'am, this sounds like a civil matter. You should talk to a divorce lawyer." "Officer," I said, keeping my voice steady even though I wanted to shout. "Her husband forged her signature on legal documents. That's not civil. That's criminal fraud." "Do you have proof he forged it?" "She was in another state when the notarization supposedly happened." "Well, that's something you can bring to a lawyer. We don't get involved in marital disputes." "This isn't a dispute," I said. "This is theft." "Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to calm down." That's when I learned something important. The system isn't designed to help people like my daughter. It's designed to protect people like Derek, people with money and confidence and the ability to make themselves look good on paper. We left that police station with nothing but frustration. But I wasn't done. Not by a long shot. "Mom," Amber said in my car, Oliver crying in the back seat, "maybe I should just stay. Maybe if I'm a better wife, if I try harder." "Stop!" I pulled over. "Amberlynn Walsh, you listen to me. This is not your fault. You are not responsible for his choices. And you are not staying in a house with a man who is stealing from you and lying to you and abandoning you when you need him most." "But where will I go?" "Home. You're coming home. To my house." "Mom, I can't ask you to." "You're not asking, I'm telling. Pack your things. You and Oliver are moving in with me. Today." We went back to her house while Derek was at work. We packed clothes, important papers, Oliver's things. We moved quickly, quietly, efficiently. And just as we were loading the last box into my car, Derek's BMW pulled into the driveway. I'll never forget the look on his face when he realized what was happening. "What the hell is this?" he demanded, getting out of his car. "Amber is leaving," I said. "She's coming to stay with me." "Like hell she is." He turned to Amber. "Babe, what is your mother telling you? You can't just leave with my son." "Your son?" I repeated. "Funny. Where were you when your son was being born?" "That's none of your business. You meddling old—" "Don't." Amber's voice was stronger than I'd heard it in months. "Don't talk to my mother that way." "I'll talk to her however I want. This is my house, my family. And you," he pointed at me, "you need to leave." "I'm not going anywhere without my daughter." Derek stepped closer, trying to intimidate me with his height, his youth. But I'd stared down rooms full of rowdy third graders for 35 years. I didn't scare easily. "You're trying to turn her against me," he said. "You've been poisoning her mind since Oliver was born. I should have known you'd be trouble." "Trouble?" I laughed. "Derek, I know about Courtney. I know about the credit cards. I know about the fraud. So here's what's going to happen. Amber is leaving. She's taking Oliver. And you're going to let her go, because if you don't, I'm going to the police with evidence that will put you in prison." His face went white, then red. Then he did something I didn't expect. He pulled out his phone and called 911. "Yes, I need police at 847 Brookside Way. My mother-in-law is trying to take my child. She's threatening me. She's unstable. Please hurry." And that's when I learned that Derek Thornton was much more dangerous than I'd thought. Because he wasn't just a cheater and a thief. He was a strategist. The police arrived within minutes. 2 officers. Derek immediately went into performance mode. Concerned father, respectful citizen, reasonable man dealing with an unstable situation. "Officers, thank you for coming. I'm so sorry to waste your time, but I came home to find my mother-in-law trying to take my wife and son. She's been making wild accusations about me. I think she might be experiencing some kind of mental health crisis. She's 72 and I'm worried she's not thinking clearly." I saw the officers' expressions shift, saw them look at me differently. Old woman, probably confused, probably paranoid. "Ma'am, one officer said to me. "Can you tell us what's going on?" Before I could answer, Derek spoke again. "She's been obsessed with our family since Oliver was born. She comes over unannounced. She's told my wife I'm having an affair, which is completely false. She's convinced Amber to leave me based on these paranoid delusions." "That's not true," Amber said, but her voice was small, shaking. "Babe," Derek said, his voice so gentle, so caring. "I know your mom has you confused, but you need to think about what's best for Oliver. He needs stability, not drama." And I watched my daughter crumble, watched her doubt herself, watched 34 years of her being trained to be polite, to not make waves, to trust authority, work against her. "Officers," I said clearly, "my daughter is a victim of domestic abuse and financial fraud. I have documentation." "Do you see?" Derek interrupted. "This is what I'm talking about. She's making serious accusations without any proof. I love my wife, I love my son, and I'm worried that Evelyn is going to hurt someone with these delusions." The officers looked uncomfortable. One of them turned to Amber. "Ma'am, do you want to leave with your mother?" Amber looked at Derek, then at me, then at Oliver in his car seat. She hesitated. And Derek smiled. "Mrs. Walsh," the officer said to me, "I think it's best if you go home. Let the family work this out on their own." "But, ma'am, I'm asking you nicely." I had to leave. I had to drive away and leave my daughter and grandson in that house with that monster. And I cried the whole way home, furious and helpless and terrified. But when I got home, I found my WhatsApp group had left me 37 messages. They'd heard what happened. Ruth had been watching from her car down the street, ready to be backup. Margaret sent me a message. "Evelyn, listen carefully. He's going to use this. He's going to claim you're mentally unstable, that you're trying to alienate him from his family. This is standard abuser playbook. You need to get ahead of this, now." Another member, Judith Patterson, sent a link. "Read this. Document everything that just happened. Every word, every witness. He's building a case to get a restraining order against you. Don't let him control the narrative." They were right. The next morning, Derek posted on Facebook, "Having a hard time tonight. My MIL has been making terrible accusations about me and trying to come between me and my wife. I've tried to be patient, but I'm worried she's having mental health issues. If you're reading this, Evelyn, I hope you get the help you need. We love you, but we need to protect our family." The comments flooded in. Supportive messages for Derek. Prayers for the poor young father dealing with a crazy mother-in-law. Suggestions that I might have dementia. He'd made the first move in a game I hadn't realized we were playing. He'd painted himself as the victim and me as the villain. But two could play at that game. I went back to Sarah Mendez. I showed her Derek's post. I showed her the police report from that night. I told her everything. "Mrs. Walsh, I'm going to be straight with you. This is going to get ugly. He's setting you up. But we have evidence he doesn't know about, and we're going to use it." "What do I do about Amber? I can't see her. She won't answer my calls." "Give her space. Let him think he's won. And in the meantime, we gather more evidence. Because men like Derek always make mistakes. They get cocky. They get sloppy. And when they do, we'll be ready." So I waited. And I documented. And I built my case, piece by piece, day by day. Ruth kept watching Courtney's townhouse. Derek's car was there 4 nights a week now. Margaret pulled Derek's business records. They were public once you knew where to look. The company was drowning in debt. Judith found 3 other women Derek had worked with, all of whom had stories about his inappropriate behavior. And I, every morning on my walk through Patterson Park, recorded video messages on my phone. Date-stamped, time-stamped, proving I was coherent, rational, and very much not experiencing dementia. 3 weeks passed. I didn't hear from Amber. Every day I woke up wondering if today would be the day she'd call. Every night I went to bed praying she and Oliver were safe. Then, on October 10th at 2:17 a.m., my phone rang. Mom. Amber's voice was barely a whisper. Mom, I need help. He locked me in the bedroom. He took my phone, but I found his old one. Mom, he's planning to take Oliver and leave. I heard him on the phone with Courtney. They're going to take him to her parents' house in Virginia. Mom, please. I need you. I'm coming. Hold on, baby. I'm coming. I called 911 as I drove. This time, I didn't ask. I demanded. My daughter is being held against her will at 847 Brookside Way. Her husband has locked her in a bedroom and is planning to take their infant son out of state. This is kidnapping. Send officers now. Then I called Ruth. I need you to go to Courtney's townhouse. If Derek shows up, call the police immediately. Then I called Sarah Mendez, waking her up. It's happening. He's making his move. I'm calling Judge Morrison. We're getting an emergency custody order. Drive safe, Evelyn, and record everything. I got to Amber's house before the police. The front door was open. Derek's BMW was in the driveway, trunk open, suitcases visible. I found Amber in the bedroom, the door locked from the outside. Oliver was with her, screaming. She'd managed to break a window to get enough air. Mom, she sobbed when she heard my voice. I don't know where the strength came from. I was 72 years old, but I broke that door down. The frame splintered and I fell into the room, and Amber grabbed me, and we held each other while Oliver cried. That's when Derek came up the stairs. What the hell are you doing in my house? Your house? I stood up, putting myself between him and my daughter. You mean the house you're about to lose because you haven't made a mortgage payment in 4 months? His face changed. How do you... I know everything, Derek. I know about Courtney. I know about the fraud. I know about the embezzlement from your own company. I know about the other women. I know you're planning to run, and I know the police are on their way. You're insane, he said, but I could see fear in his eyes now. Am I? Then why is your car packed? Why was Amber locked in this room? Why is Courtney Brennan's townhouse being watched by my friend right now? I want you out of my house. Call the police then. Oh wait, I already did. We heard the sirens then. Derek's expression went from fear to calculation to rage in seconds. This isn't over, he said. I will destroy you, both of you. You have no idea what I'm capable of. But I did. I knew exactly what he was capable of. That's why I'd been recording this entire conversation on my phone. The next few hours were chaos. Police reports, statements, Derek being escorted from the house. Emergency custody hearing at 8 a.m. where Judge Morrison, presented with all of our evidence, immediately granted Amber temporary full custody and issued a restraining order against Derek. Mr. Thornton, Judge Morrison said, looking at him with undisguised disgust, your behavior constitutes domestic abuse, financial fraud, and attempted parental kidnapping. You will stay at least 500 feet from your wife, your son, and your mother-in-law at all times. We'll reconvene in 2 weeks to discuss criminal charges. Derek's lawyer tried to argue, but the evidence was overwhelming. That day, Amber, Oliver, and I went back to my house. We were exhausted. We were scared, but we were safe. Mom, Amber said as I made us coffee in my kitchen. The kitchen where she'd done homework at this same table, where we'd baked Christmas cookies, where I'd taught her how to make Tom's favorite pasta. How did you know what to do? I didn't, I admitted. I just knew I wasn't going to let him win. But Derek wasn't done, not by a long shot. Over the next 2 weeks, his social media campaign intensified. He posted long, emotional messages about how I'd turned his wife against him, how I was mentally unstable, how I'd always hated him, how he was fighting for his rights as a father. The messages were effective. Friends I'd known for years stopped calling. Women from church avoided me. My neighbor 3 doors down asked me, quite seriously, if I was getting help for my paranoia. Derek's mother called me. Evelyn, I don't know what you've told Amber, but Derek would never do the things you're accusing him of. You're destroying his life. You're keeping him from his son. I thought you were a better person than this. Even some members of my WhatsApp group suggested I might be too involved in my daughter's marriage. But Margaret sent me an article. This is Darvo. Deny, attack, and reverse victim and offender. Classic abuser tactic. Hold the line, Evelyn. So I held the line, and I waited for Derek to make his next mistake. It came 3 days before our court date. Courtney Brennan posted a photo on Instagram. It was supposed to be innocent. A latte, a view of Patterson Park, a caption about enjoying the simple things. But in the reflection of the coffee shop window behind her, clear as day, was Derek, at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday, when he was supposed to be 500 feet away from anyone in the park where he knew I walked every morning. Ruth saw it first. "Evelyn, look at this. Is that?" It was. And he was within 300 feet of where I'd been walking an hour earlier, a clear violation of the restraining order. We reported it immediately. The police were less dismissive this time. Violations of restraining orders are taken seriously, especially when there's photographic evidence. But here's what Derek didn't know. I'd hired a private investigator. Rita Morales was recommended by one of the ladies in my WhatsApp group. She was 68, a retired police detective, and she didn't miss anything. Rita had been following Derek for a week, and what she found was gold. Derek had been meeting with his business partner, Lawrence Thornton, his cousin, and they'd been discussing a very interesting business plan. They'd been targeting young, financially naive couples, selling them expensive houses they couldn't afford, getting them to sign documents they didn't read carefully. Then, when the couples struggled, Derek and Lawrence would swoop in with solutions, high-interest loans, consolidation plans, refinancing deals, all of which enriched Derek and Lawrence while bankrupting the couples. Amber wasn't the first woman Derek had done this to. She was the fourth. The other 3 women were all divorced now, all deep in debt, all struggling. And when Rita contacted them, they all said the same thing. His mother-in-law was the problem. She kept interfering. That's what broke up the marriage. Derek had a system. Find a young woman from a family with money or property. Marry her. Isolate her from her support system, especially her mother. Drain her resources. Then move on to the next target while maintaining custody or visitation of any children as leverage. Courtney Brennan? She was target number 5. Derek had already convinced her to let him help with her finances. She'd refinanced her townhouse last month. Derek was listed as her financial advisor. "Mrs. Walsh," Rita said, showing me her report. "This is organized fraud. This goes beyond your daughter. We need to take this to the FBI." The FBI. I'd never thought I'd be talking to the FBI at 72 years old. But I did. I sat in their office with Rita and Sarah Mendez, and I handed them a folder 3 inches thick with evidence of a fraud scheme that had defrauded at least 12 families of over $2 million. Agent Williams looked at me with something like respect. "Mrs. Walsh, this is impressive work. How did you—" "I'm a mother," I said simply, "and I'm a grandmother, and nobody threatens my family." The FBI opened an investigation. Derek's assets were frozen. His business was shut down. And when Courtney Brennan realized she was victim number 5, not partner, she turned state's evidence in exchange for immunity. Which brings us back to that police station. To Derek's face when he realized I'd won. To the moment when all his manipulation, all his lies, all his carefully constructed facades came crashing down. The charges were extensive: wire fraud, identity theft, money laundering, domestic abuse, violation of a restraining order, attempted parental kidnapping. Derek's lawyer managed to get him bail, but it was set at $500,000. His parents couldn't afford it. His cousin Lawrence was facing his own charges. And Courtney had already moved back to Pennsylvania. As I walked out of that police station with Amber, Oliver sleeping peacefully in his carrier, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Peace. We moved back into my house permanently. Amber filed for divorce. With Derek's fraud conviction, custody wasn't even a question. She got full legal and physical custody. The judge ordered supervised visitation only, 2 hours every other week, at Derek's expense. The house in Brookside Estates was sold. The proceeds went to paying off the fraudulent debts Derek had accumulated. There wasn't much left, but Amber didn't care. "Mom," she said, "I don't want anything from him. I just want to start over." The other victims in Derek's scheme formed a support group. They were all young mothers, all isolated, all convinced they were crazy by men who told them they were loved while systematically destroying them. I started attending their meetings with Amber, and I learned something important. This wasn't rare. This pattern of financial abuse, of isolation, of manipulation, it was everywhere. And it was often the mothers and grandmothers who saw it first, who tried to intervene, who got labeled as interfering or controlling or crazy. My WhatsApp group grew from 12 women to 47. We called ourselves the Silver Shield now, and we helped other mothers and grandmothers fight for their daughters, their granddaughters, their families. Derek's trial was 3 months later. I testified. Amber testified. Courtney testified. The other victims testified. And Rita's evidence sealed the deal. He got 8 years in federal prison. His cousin Lawrence got 6. Their business was dissolved, and their assets were seized to provide restitution to victims. Derek's mother never apologized. She still posts on Facebook about how the justice system failed her son. I blocked her. But you know what? I don't need her apology. I have something better. I have Oliver, who's 8 months old now and smiles every time he sees me. I have Amber, who's in therapy and healing and finding herself again. I have my house full of laughter and toys and baby bottles and life. I have my dignity, my strength, my knowledge that I fought for my family and won. Every morning, I still walk in Patterson Park with Ruth. We talk about our grandchildren, about the news, about the other women in our group who need help. And sometimes, young mothers stop me and thank me. They've heard my story. It went viral on social media, much to my embarrassment. They tell me I inspired them to stand up for themselves, to listen to their instincts, to not let anyone make them feel crazy. Amber got a job at the library. She loves it. Oliver comes with her some days, and the regulars dote on him. She's dating again, slowly, carefully, but hopefully. She's learning to trust her own judgment again. And me? I'm writing this all down. For other mothers, for other grandmothers, for anyone who's ever been told they're too old, too meddling, too involved, too much. Because here's what I learned. Sometimes the most dangerous thing you can do is stay quiet. Sometimes love means fighting, even when everyone tells you you're wrong. Sometimes being a difficult mother-in-law means being the only thing standing between your family and destruction. I'm 72 years old. I'm a widow. I'm a retired teacher. I'm a mother and a grandmother. And I'm a fighter. Derek thought he could make me disappear. He thought he could paint me as a crazy old woman and everyone would believe him. He thought I'd back down, shut up, go away. He was wrong. Would you have fought like I did? Would you have stood your ground when everyone said you were wrong? When the police dismissed you? When friends abandoned you? When your own community turned against you? Or would you have backed down? Would you have let him win because fighting was too hard, too exhausting, too risky? I think about that sometimes. About how close I came to giving up. About how many women do give up. Not because they're weak, but because the system is designed to make them fail. But I also think about Oliver, about his laugh, about the way he reaches for me when he's tired, about the fact that he'll grow up safe, loved, and free from his father's manipulation. And I know I made the right choice. Sometimes I wonder if younger people understand what it's like to be invisible, to be 72 years old and have people look through you like you're furniture, to have your concerns dismissed because you're just a worried mother or an overprotective grandmother or experiencing age-related confusion. But invisible can be powerful. Because people who don't see you gathering evidence. They don't see you building your case. They don't see you planning their downfall, one documented conversation at a time. Derek Thornton learned that the hard way. And now, every time I hold my grandson, every time I see my daughter smile, every time I help another mother in my WhatsApp group, I remember, I am not invisible. I am not powerless. I am not too old to fight. I am a mother. And I am a warrior. Would you have done the same? Sometimes I wonder if people understand what it takes to fight like this. To be 72 years old and take on a man half your age who has money and charm and the whole world believing his lies. To risk everything, your reputation, your relationships, your peace, for the chance to save your family. What would you have done?